Hey everybody, welcome back to Board Game Blender. This is episode 21, and I am Zee Garcia. Today we're talking about games that are back in print in one way or another. Now there's a lot of reprints out there that just take the original game, whether it be from the same company or not, and they put it out again. But more often than not, the ones we're going to be talking about here are games that the company or a different company has taken, and they've sort of revitalized it. They've changed something, they've streamlined that game. They've made it ultimately a better game for just about everybody's, in everybody's opinion, or most people's opinion. And that's very interesting. It takes a game that people liked enough for it to come back into print, and it spices it up on top of that. So I love hearing that there's a reprint of an exciting game I've liked coming back. It's a chance for me to see if they've made any changes. It's a chance for people who haven't played the game to gravitate towards it again, to become aware of it, check it out, because it doesn't all have to be about the very, very brand new games, bringing some of these games back into print is a wonderful thing. So I'm glad there's a lot of companies doing good reprints out there. So enough of me yapping about that. Let's get to the show. Enjoy it, everybody. Here we go.
Oh, hey everyone. I'm just reading through my copy of Out-of-Print Games Everyone Should Own by Zee Garcia. It's really quite a read. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you should. It's in its third edition. Today, what I want to talk to you about, instead of a game that has been reprinted, I want to talk to you about a game that needs to be reprinted. As you can see, I've got the Numenera and Worlds Collide base sets of Thunderstone Advance, but this is a game that recently has gone out of print. Thunderstone Advance is a deck-building game in which a group of players is attempting to fight off a constant river of monsters from destroying a village. Each player starts the game with 6 regulars, a couple torches, a couple long spears, and 2 Thunderstone shards. You'll then hire more powerful heroes to assist you in your quest to fight these monsters, such as the Woodfolk Herbalist, Dark Animator, Clan Sergeant, or Lorig Thief. And as you play, you'll be able to level up these heroes. For instance, the Woodfolk Herbalist levels up into the Shaman, which then levels up into the Druid. You'll purchase items and equipment to assist you on this quest, such as the Chieftain's Drum or even a feast. You'll purchase weapons like bows and hammers. You might learn some spells or even hire some villagers, such as the Drill Sergeant, Guide, or Border Guard. All of this will help you delve deeper into the dungeon, and the deeper you get into the dungeon, the darker it gets. The darker it gets, the more light you need, or the more physical or magic attack. You'll face monsters like the Tendril Minion that will give you diseases that take up room in your hand and make you less effective in combat. Or this Doom Knight named Lord Mortis that actually takes away some of the light you'll need to delve deeper into the dungeon. Or this Skyworm Priest who ignores specific characters you may have in your band of heroes. Sometimes you'll end up fighting a Guardian who is protecting the final big bad boss at the end of the game. And you'll have to face a big bad, such as the last Doom Knight. Thunderstone Advance is a really, really fun deck-building game. And if you haven't had the opportunity to play it yet, I recommend you go out and find yourself a copy of one of the base sets quickly before all of them are just too expensive to be worthwhile. Thanks for watching, everybody, and until next time, if you're bored online, bored offline.
Hey everyone, it's MAGGIBOT, and for Board Game Blender this week we're talking about games that are living a new life either through a reprint or a reimagining. And this has been especially fun for me this year because so many amazing games are getting a reprint. I pride myself on trying to go back and learn games that came out before I knew what gaming was. I've only been gaming for 4 or 5 years, and so I try and educate myself about where these mechanics come from. Who was the first to do that? Oh, Richard Breeze did worker placement. Let's go try that game. You know, to just feel out what things were like before the games that I know and love came out now. There are some games that hold up though, time over time, and deserve some reprints. So you see them coming out a lot more lately as the hobby gets bigger. This year, Mogul came back out. This is similar to No Thanks. It's kind of like an anti-bidding game. It's nice for after dinner. It's simple and fun and beautiful. You have Skull and Roses living its third life, and it's a Perudo or Liar's Dice type party game. Really cool art. You can get it in several different styles. And yeah, it's new to me. It is a trick-taking game in which players get to choose what the trump is, what you discard, who the leader is, and it's kind of team-based turn by turn. It's a very interesting way to do trick-taking. The number one game I get asked about that is a reprint this year, though, is Luna. Now, Luna is originally Steffenfeld with Pegasus Spiel and Hall Games. It got a printing in the States from Z-Band Games a few years back. And then when it went out of print, when people couldn't find it, they were paying astronomical amounts of money for it. The most I saw paid for a copy of Luna was $100. So, last year, Tasty Minstrel got the license, did a Kickstarter, and now you can find Luna in your stores. You can go to the friendly local game store and just pick this up off the shelf, which is amazing. Now, why, Maggie? Why is this the game? It's really hard to quantify why I love this game so much, but this is my favorite Feld. It is different than most Felds. It is different than most action selection or worker placement games. I'm not sure where it would fall in, but you have this central temple and you have islands around. Each turn you can either move guys off an island to take the actions associated with that island. You can find more guys, you can move them around, or you can try and control this temple. If you played La Granja this year, this temple works just like the marketplace. It is really wonderful, very interactive, and hard to master. It changes a lot game over game without a lot of typical replayability, no modular boards, no cards or anything, but it always feels fresh and wonderful. And the biggest thing that this game does that you see in a lot of other games is that collectively as a group, if you pass a certain number of times, the round is over. So if you're ahead, you can further the round along, and if you're behind, you try and scoop up those last actions as you can. Really interesting mechanics and just a beautiful board and play. Highly recommend Luna. Thanks all, and I'll see y'all next time.
Hey guys, Tiff here. I had a hard time thinking of a game for this week because for my own collecting, I generally enjoy hunting down hard to find and out of print games. I don't necessarily keep track of what's in or out of print for myself, but for my board game club, out of print games are a no-no. I always want the kids playing games they can easily go out and get. So, in order to choose a game for this video, I had to go through the games that we've played that were at one point out of print, and to my surprise I found quite a few, but the cream of the crop, for me, was Downfall of Pompeii. The Downfall of Pompeii is a 2 to 4 player family game from Mayfair Games set in ancient Roman times during the notorious eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The gameplay happens in 2 phases, placing your people into buildings, then evacuating them out of the city as quickly as possible before the volcano explodes. In the first phase, players will be drawing cards from the deck and choosing where to place their people on the board. The cards match the different colored buildings, so to place a person in the brown 10 building, you would have to play a corresponding card. Placing your people with easy access to the exits is crucial to increase their chances of escape once the volcano begins to erupt. As you draw cards, you'll encounter 2 79 AD cards, the first of which makes it possible for you to place more than one person per turn. If you place someone in a building that is already occupied, you'll be able to place extra family members equal to the number of people in that building. So in this case, as the blue player, I can now place an additional 2 people either in a building of the same color or one of the neutral buildings on the board. Your goal here being to get as many of your people into the buildings closest to the exits as possible. The second 79 AD card triggers the volcano eruption and the placement of the starting lava tiles. Once this happens, your turn is spent by first drawing and placing a lava tile. You'll want to place these tiles carefully to avoid blocking off your own path to escape, but at the same time put some of your opponent's people into harm's way. After placing the lava and maybe dropping a few of your opponent's people into the volcano, you get to move 2 of your own people out towards the city gates. Each person you move gets to go as many spaces as there are people in their starting space. The game ends either once there are no more people on the board, or all of the lava tiles have been placed. The winner is the player who managed to save the most people, but if there's a tie, it'll be the person with the fewest people in the volcano. The Downfall of Pompeii is a great game for teenagers. It's got that 45-minute sweet spot playtime, and it's pretty affordable at only $35. The setup is a little involved, but the simple gameplay makes up for that. And the theme may seem a little dark, but since it's handled in such an abstract way, I think it could still work for families and at school. I love that there's a 3-dimensional volcano included. It's not necessary, but it makes the take that interaction fun, and adds table appeal that will get the kids interested immediately. You can even pop an electric tea light into it for extra volcanic ambiance. I highly recommend this game. Check it out, and I'll see you back next time.
Hello folks, welcome to Corner Chat. Mark.
And I am Randy. This week, instead of Mark's usual illustrious game designer or game publisher, Mark is going to settle for a not-so-illustrious game buyer.
Yes, indeed. This week, we're talking about reprints, and the first one to come to mind for us is Cash and Guns. It was out of print, back in print, and it's just been a really enjoyable game for us.
Now, over the past couple of years, we've seen a number of games get reprinted. Some of them get reprinted in approximately the same form as they were initially. Games like Vikings, Medina, Hansa Teutonica. Other games get reprinted, and we're glad they did, but they might be considered a little bit inferior. Games like Manila, which originally had these awesome little plastic coins, and I believe now they're just cardboard chits.
Right.
Other games, though, get reprinted with significantly better components. An example of that is Mexico, which now, instead of just the little plastic pyramids, they're going to have these resin pyramids.
Yeah, which are amazing.
We're looking forward to that coming out soon. But Cash and Guns is a little bit surprising in a couple of ways. First, because in our very violence-conscious America, we're surprised that a game that involves pointing foam guns at each other gets reprinted. But even more so because the mechanics of the game got adjusted a bit when they got reprinted.
For sure. And at the heart of the game, both games, they're really the same game. You're a bunch of crooks, you just finished a major robbery, and now you're divvying up the loot. Yep. And that's about where the games start to change from that point. And for me, one of the biggest things, obviously, is the artwork. And so, the original version of this, the artwork was interesting, right? I mean, it's got a more, it's still whimsical, but more gritty feel to it.
Yeah.
And some of the little racial stereotypes going on.
There definitely is some stereotypes there.
Definitely. And the thing I like better about the new version with the artwork is that in the heart of this game, it is a party game. So, and the new whimsical art makes it feel more like a party game and less like you're out to kill your neighbor, right?
Yeah, this is a little bit more of a pure gangster game in many ways. It's just brass tacks. You've got this money, you're trying to split it up, and as Mark said, there's the archetypes, if you will, or caricatures, many which involve potentially racial stereotypes, but nobody's necessarily any worse than anybody else. They're all gangsters, okay?
Right.
But they tend to be the classic gangsters, whereas, as Mark said, the artwork in the new ones, it's more cartoony and fun.
Yep.
But some of the other differences are the number of players.
Yes.
This is a great game to sit down with people who are still, they're milling around, you're trying to get their energy under control so they can play a game that's more focused. Maybe the people aren't real gamers or they're not deep gamers. This is a game to bring to the table. And the nice thing is a lot of games don't support a larger number of people.
Yeah, and that's awesome with the new set.
The original one supported only 6 players. The new one supports 8, which is really nice.
And there was an expansion for the old one that brought it to 9, but super fiddly to work. It just didn't work great. So I think the new version does that much better to bring a huge group into it. And with that many guns pointing at the table, that's a lot of fun, I can tell you right now.
Now, the other thing the new version does is it adds something that might be more appealing to deeper gamers. It adds what you might think of when you think of Seven Wonders or Sushi Go. It's not just a question of splitting up money like it was originally. And the big obstacle there was if you had money that didn't divide evenly, you had to leave it in the pot.
Correct.
But it was all just bills on the table. With the new one, there are issues. There are items like artwork, where If you get one piece of artwork, it's worth a little bit. But if you get a whole run of those that artwork, then it's worth quite a bit more.
Right. And the same with diamonds, too.
With diamonds, exactly.
Diamonds is the other one. And you get a big pile of diamonds, and at the end, you get a big, huge diamond with a 60,000 bonus.
Exactly, exactly.
Those are some interesting differences in divvying up the loot, for sure. The other nice thing about this new version is the Godfather option. The Godfather has some powers. If you're pointing at somebody, he can choose and force you to redirect to another character or person at the table, I should say, which is pretty nice.
It is. If I were the Godfather and Mark is pointing at me, I could redirect the gun to some other player.
Or you.
Or you. Now, the nice thing is that does give you a special power each time we go through the gun pointing phase, but at the end of the game, the Godfather roll is not worth any points.
Right, and you have to give up grabbing loot to steal the Godfather from someone else.
So it's a trade-off.
It is.
Now, something that's in the original version that's not in the newer one are the bang, bang, bang cards. When you're choosing your cards to basically load your gun with before you point the guns, they can either be click, 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 meaning it's empty, or a bang, meaning it's a regular bullet.
Get a drop on someone.
Right, but bang, bang, bang gives you a quick shot. Basically, you get the drop on another player. And if they have a regular bang card pointing at you and you've got bang, 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 it gives you the drop. You hit them before they hit you, and their bullet doesn't hit you, which is nice.
Which is pretty neat, actually. Yeah. And then, of course, there's power cards. And both sets have power cards. But in the original, they were secret, so you could have kind of like a trader option. In the new version, they're up front. Everybody can see who everybody is and their roles and their powers, I should say. And there's happens to be more in the new version, 16 as opposed to 10, right?
I think that's right.
I think that's right. So some pretty nice options there, and bottom line is both these games are great.
They are.
And you really can't go wrong with either. They're really fun party games, and you can engage a lot of people. So anyway, you should check them out for sure. And until next time, we'll see you at the table. And if you're Eric Lang, guns.
Hey everybody, for today's Quirky Game, I am taking a look at Traders of Osaka here. Traders of Osaka, which was originally known as Traders of Carthage, is a strange little card game in which you are collecting cards that are money and then using those cards to buy goods, also the same cards, by the way. And then the ships are moving to Osaka, and when a ship gets there, then you sell the goods of that kind. So when the yellow ship gets to Osaka, you sell all your yellow goods. The scoring's a little quirky, and I'm not even going to go into it, but just suffice it to say, it's the one thing most people trip up with when they're trying to learn or teach the game, and I totally understand. I wish it was a little simpler, but ultimately, the game works, and it works well. And this reprint is a very nice one. I thought they did a fantastic job, really, with the look of the game. It's technically a re-theme, but it's, you couldn't tell, except for the name on the box and the names of the ports that the ships move along. It's not much of a re-theme. But the artwork is very nice. I'm glad for that. The cards look very good, and they are high quality. Now, the cards in the original were high quality. They looked pretty good, but I definitely like this look better. It's just a little brighter. It's a little more inviting. And then the board I like as well. It's a little more muted than I wish it was. As you can see there, it's an alright board. But it's a little fuzzy and a little blurry and a little muted. I wish the board was better. Everything else I'm really happy with. The tokens are great. The look of the game is great. The game itself is a very solid game, which, yes, it's quirky. But if you get over the hurdle of figuring out those little nuances and the timing of the game, the cadence is a little funny, then I think you're going to enjoy this one if you like card games at all. So I definitely recommend it. Traders of Osaka, I'm glad it's back in print. I think it did that well when it came out, but apparently it did well enough to get a reprint, and I'm very happy for that. So check this one out if this is your type of game. It's very well put together. It's from Susumu Kawasaki, who is a designer I really enjoy. The same designer as R Echo, probably one of my favorite fillers of all time. And this one, while not nearly as good as R Echo for me, is a game I'm very happy to have as well. check it out if you like quirky card games. Solid little game.
Hi everybody! I have 2 kids, a daughter who just turned 7 and a 3.5-year-old son. And introducing them to games is one of my favorite things to do, of course. And like most of you already know, today's kids and family games are really varied in theme and mechanic so that they appeal to younger minds, but also to older, more decrepit ones like mine. But just like older games or games geared towards adults, kids' games go in and out of print. Such was the case with Gullo Gullo, because when my daughter was old enough to start learning games, it was long out of print and hard to find. But it sounded like so much fun. So I was ecstatic when I heard that Haba, which as we all know is one of the best publishers of family and kids games, had picked up the license to reprint Gullo Gullo. I was also a little bit trepidatious because I heard that they were going to reskin it with an ancient Egyptian theme. In Pharaoh's Gullo Gullo, players are racing to free a mummy from its curse. Colored tiles that match colored boulders are laid out on the board's path. And the centerpiece of the game, the mummy's trap, is filled with boulders and the mummy's staff is placed in the center, thus setting the trap. Players move by revealing the next hidden tile or by jumping to the next tile of a chosen color. In both cases, players must try to remove a boulder of the tile's color from the trap without knocking out a boulder or knocking over the staff. If you succeed, you get to move, and if you're on a scarab tile, you get a scarab token. If you fail, you must go back to the beginning of the section of the board you're in. The game is won when a player makes it to the mummy's tomb with 2 scarabs and removes 2 boulders from the trap that match the tomb's tiles. The theme and art is light and cartoony, as you'd expect from a kid's game, and the components are amazing, as you'd expect from Haba. Pharaoh's Gullo Gullo has some really clever gameplay elements that make this reprint worth your while. For example, I think it's really cool that you can choose to advance to the next color tile. It makes for a nice catch-up mechanic. I also think it's really great that you can choose to move forward or backwards, which helps you get the necessary scarab tiles. Speaking of scarab tiles, let's talk a little bit about how the Pharaoh's Gullo Gullo reprint differs from the original game beyond the theme. There are 3 key differences between the reprint and the original game. Pharaoh's Gullo Gullo comes in a huge box containing a huge board. The art really helps cement the Egyptian theme, but it's a bit of a table hog, whereas the original Gullo Gullo just had little tiles that were shuffled up and arranged in a line as players desired. Gullo Gullo is a fairly straightforward race and dexterity game. The reprint adds the scarab tiles that you can only collect by landing on a space that has the scarab symbol. These are required to win the game and can help you when you run into the mummy. Collecting them adds an extra challenge to gameplay and gives you a reason to sometimes move backwards on the path. The final big gameplay differentiator is the mummy, which shuffles through its tomb, and when you encounter it, it'll send you back to the pyramid's entrance unless you give it a scarab. The mummy moves when a player or the mummy lands on a tile with a mummy symbol on it. Keeping an eye on the mummy's location and gauging when you'll encounter it and ensuring you have a scarab to pay it definitely ups the strategy level of the game. Pharaoh's Gullo Gullo is a great reprint of a wonderful kids game. The gameplay changes definitely lift the minimum age just a bit, but there are rules included to help simplify the game for younger players or for older, more decrepit and clumsy ones like this one. And sometimes my family even just pull out the mummy's trap and set that up and then flip random color tiles to play a straight dexterity game, which my kids always love because they basically always beat me at it. Go figure. But hey, if you've got a family, Pharaoh's Gullo Gullo is a great game. I'm so glad they reprinted it. You should check it out. See you next time.
Hello, welcome to Boards and Crafts, a place for quick tutorials, the snacks and crafts inspired from games, for games, and all about board games. I love when games come back into print. Take, for example, Betrayal at House on the Hill. This game came back in print last year and it was fantastic, except for one little piece. These black pegs. They fall off every time that you pick it up, and one of the things about it is that you move these around, and they always are slipping and sliding. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make a quick little fix to this problem with some fancy little clothespins. Let's get started. The supplies that you'll need for your clothespins are mini clothespins and markers. Seriously though, that's all you need. So I decided to go and split my clothespins into 2 stacks to color them red and blue. I did this because I wanted a visual difference between physical and mental damage. You can also use clothespins to keep track of points in Mysterium as well. And that's it. If you guys have any other ideas, comment below or tweet them at me at ArtsyRobot. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you on the next blend.
Hi folks, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Hunter, and this is the two-player Showdown. If Vassal Law holds true, any good game that goes out of print will eventually come back into print. We're looking at you, Pillars of the Earth.
For our reprint episode, we are choosing to focus on Mission Red Planet. We are going to concentrate today on the two-player variant, so if you would like to see the full review, check out a previous episode of Miami Dice.
The new Mission Red Planet by Fantasy Flight Games, at its heart, is an area control game. It has some hidden card selection as well, and there's some take-that mechanisms with the cards. The goal of the game is to send your astronauts to various parts of the board to control those areas, and whoever has control of the areas gains resources, which are your victory points. There's other ways to gain victory points, such as mission cards and discovery cards, but for the most part, it's an area control, resource gaining type of game.
Two-player Mission Red Planet plays the same as the four-player with a few minor changes, most of them in the setup. In the first place, both players sit next to each other, as opposed to across the table in traditional games. Each player chooses a main color and a neutral color. The main color sits in front of the player, while the neutral color is diagonal. Only the main color gets a starting mission. Each player creates a neutral deck in a specific way. You take the deck, remove the Recruiter, Explorer, Femme Fatale, Soldier, and 2 random cards. Shuffle these and place them face down. Then you place the remaining cards and put them on the top. For gameplay, at the start of the round, each player secretly looks at the top of their neutral deck. Each player picks his main color card as normal. The controlling player controls all of the decisions of the neutral player. If the neutral character ever draws a mission or an action card, it is discarded. When scoring, the neutral player's points count separately from the main color. If a neutral player scores the most points at the end of the game, then both players lose. And you might think about playing something else. So what do you think about playing Mission Red Planet?
I really enjoyed the two-player version of the game. The neutral player adds a whole nother level of strategy. You have to not only take into account what your main character is going to be doing that turn, but you also have to utilize the card that your neutral player is going to be playing as well. So you basically have a whole nother level to the game that isn't in the multiplayer, where you just focus in on one character.
Yeah, it's really close for me. I can't really decide. In fact, maybe I should play it one more time just to decide. Alright, so in summation, I'd say that the multiplayer game edges out the two-player just by a hair, because I really like to focus on just playing one character. But other than that, it's great. Playing two-player or multiplayer. So, in summation, thank you so much for joining us.
Go catchphrase!
Hi there, I'm Ilya.
And I'm Alina.
Today we're going to talk about Arctic Scavengers. This is the newest edition. This game went through different reprints. It was really hard to get it. Nowadays it's really easy to get it. It has the newest expansion in it, Recon expansion. So here it is.
Game is themed in the post-apocalyptic world where 90% of the population is eliminated by new ice age. So now you are surviving in small gangs.
Yeah, brutal world. Mechanically, this game is a deck building.
Another one?
But what makes this game stand out from other deck builders like Dominion, Thunderstone, Trains? First of all, it's the resources or currency, how you call them, or even actions. this is the left row on the cards that you use to make different actions or get the cards in your hands or the deck.
So what is different between this game and the regular deck builders? In deck builders, what do? You get cards, you check how many coins you have, and you think which cards will you buy. Here you have so many actions to do, and you don't feel like you're buying this card or another card. You actually have decision like, okay, I have 4 people and I have shovel. I need to get medicine and I need to hunt. And you actually really feel like you're making decision, not just buying the cards. That's wow effect for me.
And another cool feature of the game is a junk pile. It's a big pile of cards that you can dig through. You have the digging action. So you're gonna come here digging and you're gonna get new cards. Mostly there are good cards like tools, weapons, medicine and so on. But sometimes you're gonna get the junk as well. What's cool about this one is that you are going to take all the cards and put them face down in your discard. All the cards that you're discarding or using or whatever, you're going to put face down. So other players will not know what you're going to get in your deck until they get to know and discover.
Lots of secrets.
One of the most important parts of the game is a skirmish phase.
During your turn, you can decide not to spend your cards and actually leave them face down for the final rounds for the skirmish. You'll be battling for this deck.
This deck has a lot of powerful cards that will enhance your deck and enhance your gameplay.
And the skirmish is not just battle, skirmish is bluff. Because you're going to put face down just a random amount of cards and your opponent doesn't know. Do you have really powerful thugs and snipers, or you have pointless refugees with shovels?
It's brutal, you know.
Arctic Scavengers has been my favorite deck builder for a really long time because it's just so special.
Yeah, it's different from all the other deck builders. It has the new edition with 2 expansions, lots of cards in this box. You get a lot of plays from this box here. And it is thematic. It is more thematic than Dominion, trust me.
So if I could recommend one deck builder to every friend of the blend, I would recommend Arctic Scavengers.
Arctic Scavengers.
It was a typical Monday morning, sitting down, eating my cereal, watching Board Game Breakfast. When I was watching the news, Tom Vasel had mentioned that Mutant Chronicles Siege of the Citadel would see a reprint. I was so excited to hear this news that I ran outside and started shouting at the top of my lungs, "It's being reprinted! It's being reprinted!" Well, that was a little crazy. Anyway, here we go. Mutant Chronicles Siege of the Citadel, published in 1993 by Pressman. This is a 3 to 5 player game in which you're trying to eliminate the Dark Legion forces. Let me set this up and show you how it works. This is a scenario-based game, so the layout of the board will change with every scenario. This game is best played with 5 players, but can be played with 3 or 4 also. And what you do first is you pick one of your team here, whether it be Imperial, Capital, Mishima, Bajas, or Cybertronics. Now the gameplay is very simple. You will draw one of these tokens here at the beginning of the scenario. You will draw one, and whoever gets drawn plays the bad guys for that scenario. Now, it's not all bad to play the bad guys because you will
level up pretty quick when you're actually playing the bad guys. Every player will control 2 figures, and the figures will start out with your basic weapon, which is just a Punisher sword, and a plasma carbine rifle. As the game goes on and you gain rank, you can buy explosive ammo, all the way to the ever so popular Nimrod autocannon, which is the strongest weapon in the game. Now, with each figure, you can only do 2 actions. You can move and you can do combat. When you move, you will move 3 spaces in any direction. Combat works the same whether it be close combat with a sword or long range combat with a gun. You're going to roll these dice here. The white are kind of weak. They only have 2 hits on them. The red is a medium dice. It's got 3 hits on them. And the black dice, which is the strongest dice in the game, has 4 hits on them. Each creature that you destroy will have promotion points depending on how strong the creature is. And promotion points are used in the game to rank up your team. And the higher the rank, the more weapons that you can equip your team with. Now, the person that's playing the Dark Legion forces will do the exact same thing that the good guys have done. Each figure will get 2 actions, and it can be a move action or it can be attack action. And they actually have a little chart here to tell you what kind of dice they roll, whether it be close combat or fire combat. The game is over when the good guys complete the objective for that scenario, or the bad guys destroy all the good guys. This game was originally designed by Richard Borg, and he's also doing the reprint, along with Kevin Wilson and Eric Lang, and it's going to be published by Modifius. I'm very curious to see what kind of reboot they're going to do with this game, because as it stands, this game is pretty cool. Along with the miniatures here. My miniatures aren't painted, but if anybody got Rob Warren's number, I'd greatly appreciate it. Well, that's all the time I have for now. May your rolls be high.
Hey everybody, for today's Under the Radar, I'm taking a look at a game that was published by Jolly Roger Games several years ago called Dynasties. Dynasties was an Al Newman design for just 2 players in which you fought over certain provinces, and the game was an area control game that was just for 2. That was really a novel concept to me, especially at the time. And so the game has been reprinted as Sun Tzu, as you can see here. This one from MAGGIBOT Games, and it is a stunning looking production. Now, MAGGIBOT already was printing this overseas, but even for them, this is a deluxe version of what they had originally put out. I love the artwork on this new one. It's a much bigger box, which is okay. You know, that's fine. I really like the size of the original. It was very small, very portable game, but I'm willing to sacrifice and deal with the bigger box for the nice upgraded bits in this box. The original, the armies were black and white cubes, and they occupied spaces on the board, like I said, and so now you get these cool little miniatures in blue and red. They're a little on the droopy side. I wouldn't want to go into battle with that axe there, but they look good on the board, you know, and they're well done. It's an attractive looking game. This map now is a much bigger map than it originally was, the board. And so very clean look there, nice and bright. The cards are pretty good quality, and the game even gives you a few new cards that were not in the original one as variants. So you can spice it up even more if you throw in some of those variants. And overall, just a really solid game in which, again, you are fighting over these specific areas by playing cards face down and then revealing and see what happens. It's a double thing kind of game. You have to be careful not to overcommit your armies to specific areas or have your opponent pull a fast one and force you to overcommit when you expected that not to happen, you see, because you have a very limited amount of armies. And so the gameplay is It's a little strange, but it definitely works, and it captures the idea of controlling the areas and going to war in a very abstract way, but an engaging way. I really enjoy it. So, if you like two-player games that are sort of outside the box, then I recommend you check this one out. A lot like the original Dynasties, but in a gorgeous new box, a beautiful new production, and definitely a solid game for 2 players only. Check this one out. I'll see you. Boop, 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 boop.
Hey everybody, so this week in my Designer Spotlight we're talking about reprints and redesigns of games. So I wanted to highlight someone who has done a lot of reprints, and that is Klaus Teuber. He is, obviously you know him from Settlers of Catan, and he has done many versions of Settlers of Catan over the years, whether it was the original, whether they renamed it Catan, whether it was the Starfarers of Catan, Seafarers, which are expansions. He also done other versions like the Settlers of Canaan, which is the one set in Israel, or the Star Trek Catan. They've done many reprints of what is a great game, and he really is known for having his games, because he's like a legend in the industry who basically started the Euro craze, having his games reprinted or reformatted into a different form. And he's someone that really, if you're looking for those kind of games, someone to look for. There's a few other games of his also, besides Catan, which is the most well-known. There's a few other games of his that also have had reprints recently. Barbarossa, which was a clay building game, sort of like, I guess, a Pictionary style game with clay, has been redone recently by Cosmos, called Dodals. So if you're looking to do, play with clay, and it's actually a lot of fun, Dodals is another one. He also, Lowenhertz, another one of his games, which was a great little area control card playing game. Area control / making borders game. He redid that as Domain, which a lot of people think is a better version than Lowenhertz because it's a lot cleaner. He also did many versions of another game that I would consider highly on his scale, called Adele Verpliktet, or Hoity Toity. It's a little bluffing game. I think it was one of the first of the bluffing games where we all play secretly a card, and depending what card you play, you do different things. So you can go and rob, or you can go and make money, or you could do different things with your card. So am I going to show off art, or am I going to rob? And if 2 people rob, then you're competing. But if you're the only one playing art, then you're in your own area. So you want to kind of do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. It's another great game of his. So if you're really looking for games, obviously you know Catan, and you know all the versions of Catan, even his new North Wind, which was sort of a take on the Starfarers of Catan, the 2-player one. The 2-player Starfarers of Catan, his take on that was North Wind, a multiplayer version. But in general, Catan is his thing, and there's many versions, many reprints, many everything for that game. But if you're looking for someone, and as you saw, there's a bunch of his different games that are very good. Someone that I would recommend highly purchasing any of his games is Klaus Teuber.
Howdy gamers, time once again for Buy, Try, or Deny. I'm Indiana John. Today we're taking a look at reprints. Now when a game is first released by a publisher, it's hard to know whether it's going to be a hit or a dud. And so a game might sell well for a while, and then it'll just kind of go into decline and eventually go out of print. But the law of economics tells us that as supply decreases, oftentimes demand will increase, and then the public will be clamoring for these games to come back into print. So today we're going to take a look at 3 games that were out of print for a while and have recently come back into print, and you can decide whether it's worth it or not. Let's take a look. Today's buy game was designed by famous and prolific game designer Dr. Rainer Knizia, and it was a game that was sort of a departure from some of the other more Euro-style things that he did, in that it was a 2-player card game that had almost a collectible format to it. Of course, I'm talking about Blue Moon. Now this is the original of starter box that came out from Cosmos, in which it came with 2 faction decks that you would pit against one another. So in this game you are battling for control of dragons in this fictional world of Blue Moon. There's a whole lot of backstory that goes along with it, but I never really read up on it that much. But it was a very interesting game of kind of back and forth and sort of push your luck and special abilities and powers on the cards. And I found it to be a very enjoyable 2-player game. But it came in this box with only 2 factions, and then they would release individual faction packs, much like a living card game. But the game went out of print, and it was eventually then reprinted as Blue Moon Legends. Fantasy Flight took it and put all of the different factions into one box. So you have all, I think, 8 or 10 or something like that, different factions in one box. They sort of upgraded the plastic dragon components and also put in some great new artwork and some cool iconography. And this is, I think, a really underrated game. I think a lot of people sort of dismissed it as, oh, it's almost like playing War. But there's a lot more to it than that. And the more that you play it, I think the deeper of a game that it gets. And so the fact that they've put it all into one big box here in the reprint, and it's a really, I think, an affordable price point as well. I think this is really one that you should check out if you haven't seen it yet. And so that's our buy game this time, Blue Moon Legends. Our try game this time is a worker placement game set in the Wild West, and that is Carson City, designed by Xavier Georges. Now, I haven't had a chance to play this game until this year because it was out of print. And so I finally got a copy because it's now coming back into print due to a Kickstarter campaign, and a lot of folks are selling off their initial copies or putting them in math trays, which is how I got this one. This is a real fun worker placement game about settling the city of Carson City. You're building buildings, getting resources, getting money. One of the coolest things about the game is that you can kick people off of spaces on the board by fighting them. And so you can set up these duels where you are getting an arsenal of guns and you're rolling dice to be able to fight people. So that's different than what I've seen in most worker placement games. And that is why it's a try for me, because that kind of conflict is not something that I usually enjoy in a worker placement game. And if you're someone who doesn't like conflict in your worker placement games, other than fighting for position just passively, you might not like this one very much. But I think it's a lot of fun. I think that the new production that's coming out looks really cool. It's like a big box edition. But if you're able to get your hands on that or this first edition here from Eagle Games, I would definitely recommend it as a try, Carson City. Today's deny game is one that I do not own, and why would I? It's a deny. And that is Betrayal at House on the Hill. Now, I have nothing really bad to say about the gameplay of Betrayal. I think it's a really fun game. It's a sort of a semi-cooperative game where you're going around this haunted house, and eventually you find out that one of the people that's in your party is the murderer or the bad guy. And then at one point in the game called The Haunt, things just sort of take a turn, and then the whole play of the game changes. I think the gameplay is fantastic, but when Wizards of the Coast decided to reprint this back a few years ago, the quality of production of the materials and the components in the game took a dive. And look at this picture here of the different comparison of the tiles. Look at all that warping on the tiles. They didn't do a really good job of quality control on the components. Here's a picture of a miniature that's got a serious lean problem on it. And, you know, so it just was kind of sad. And then they also had these little placards that you would use to keep track of the different stats of the players. They had these little clips on them. The clips don't stay on. Every time you pick the things up, they fall off. So a really great game, but the production quality of the reprint, it's like, what were they thinking? You know, if they really want to bring something back into production, why not give it some real high production values? So that's the deny for me, not for the game itself, but just for the component quality on that particular version. That's Betrayal at House on the Hill. So those are our reprints. Our deny game, Betrayal at House on the Hill, not because of the gameplay, but because of the terrible components in the reprint. Our try game, Carson City, which is a great worker placement game, but might not be for you if you don't like conflict in your games. And the fantastic Blue Moon Legends, a great 2-player battle game from Reiner Knizia, and the reprint is just chock full of replayability. So there you have it. What would be your buy, try, or deny for reprints? Let me know in the comments, or you can get in touch with me on Twitter at John W. Richard and let me know there. So thanks for watching, and until next time, game on.
Hey folks, welcome back to another segment of Real Talk with Sam. Thanks for joining us back here, all you friends of the blend. And this week, as I was thinking about what I should probably talk about with this whole idea of reprints, I thought that I would take a two-pronged approach. I would talk about something that I'm not liking right now, and then another thing that I'm really enjoying right now. And so with that further ado, let's go ahead and get to the bad stuff first. And the bad stuff centers around this guy right here. Coliseum is one of the best games, one of my favorite games of all time. Days of Wonder, crown and jewel. Love this game. And then it took me a while to actually get a copy of this, and I actually didn't get a copy of this on my own. I was helped by by one of you guys, and just a great little story for the community. Love it. So I had been waiting for a very long time for this to be mentioned as getting a reprint. But then I got a copy, and so I kind of came off of it for a little bit. But then news came down the pike that TMG was doing this. And I was not happy. And I wasn't the only one not happy. And I don't find any information about it anymore, so I don't know what's going on. In 2015, we've actually seen a lot of reprints, and one of the best reprints, I think, is this one right here. Now, like that other game that I just got through talking about, I wasn't very impressed with this one. Now, I wasn't as disappointed in this one as I was that one, but I wasn't really in with the classic Dracula look. But actually, after having played it, I can look over that. Because while I really enjoyed the look of this one, the gameplay was very long, and that's one of the things they took care of with this one. They modernized the gameplay a little bit, they streamlined a bunch of things, and made this game better. They took a very good game, and they made it much, much better, and that's what I love about Fury of Dracula. This is how reprints should be done. Changing up the look of it, I wasn't on board to begin with, but I can say I enjoy it now because the gameplay is awesome. I love how they cut down some of the time, made the less downtime throughout the game. Love that. This is the way reprints should be done. Tasty Mentrol. Pay attention to that, please. And don't mess up one of the best games that have ever been created. Please. Look. Just trying to keep it real. See you on the flip side.
That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's episode, and we'll be back in 2 weeks talking about 2015 in gaming. So it'll be sort of an overview episode. We'll be talking about the year as a whole, what we thought were cool new trends, games we enjoyed, you know, that sort of thing. Everybody's going to be able to tackle it in whichever way they want to. So I'm very excited to see what everybody else is going to say, all my contributors who are awesome. And again, thank you guys and gals. And thank you folks for tuning in, all right? And as always, hey, stay for another blend, and I'll see you.